If you've watched my channel at all over the past few years, you've probably heard me say a few bad things about cryptocurrencies. In fact, I'd even go as far as to say that I've bashed cryptocurrencies a few times on my channel. But I'll say, like taste buds, opinions do change over time, and I do think my opinion about cryptocurrencies has changed recently. Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. My name's Matt, and I'll just say just in case, not advice, don't take it as advice, just, do your own research, all of that fun stuff. As I was saying in the intro, my opinion has actually changed about cryptocurrency over the past few months, and I just wanted to explain with all of you why that has changed. But I'd like to start off with explaining to you exactly why I did not like cryptocurrencies to start with. Now, Bitcoin itself has been on my radar since around 2012. Like many of you, maybe the first time you heard of this had to do with that website called the Silk Road. I'm not really going to explain what it is if you don't know what it is, but I first saw it at that point in time, and it just made no sense to me because it was this like currency that you had to pay, and you were buying like pretty sketchy things on the internet that was like illegal, but there wasn't any way of tracking it. So the whole idea around it, first off, was kind of sketchy to me. It wasn't something that I felt was morally, I guess, acceptable. And I just had no idea how somebody even goes about acquiring one of these Bitcoins. So starting off, I didn't necessarily have the best view towards this cryptocurrency, and I just didn't really think of it as like a legitimate investment or any kind of, thing that would actually have any kind of value in the future other than buying illegal items. And of course, over the years, I would occasionally hear stories of some celebrities or famous people that were purchasing or using or accepting cryptocurrencies. I think like 50 Cent, wasn't he accepting Bitcoin for one of his albums? And then those, twins from the Facebook movie, those two were also into crypto. And, at the time, me being a 19, 20-year-old, obviously I know more than all these people do, thought that they were absolutely wasting their time and money by trying to utilize something that the government might just shut down one day, and then they'll be lost out there with all this money invested in something that is now worthless. So ultimately, it was something that I didn't really put too much time, emphasis, or really thought towards, and just kind of let it be. Now, let's go ahead and fast forward though to around 2017. At this time, I was working at Vanguard, and this is around the time that Bitcoin actually started to, I think it was like the first time it broke $1,000 a coin, and then it was just on this massive rally for a while. And there was a few people at Vanguard that were talking about it and that were very excited about it, but I'll just say, when you work at Vanguard, and that's the kind of investment philosophy that you have, something like a cryptocurrency makes 0 sense. Part of that is because when it comes to, things like cryptocurrencies, it's really hard for an investor to place a value on it like I'm able to do with companies because the coin itself isn't generating any cash flow. It's not, in any kind of business. There's no kind of like public relations that it has. So to me, it was just something that was completely driven by the media. And, if there's good news about it, price goes up. Bad news, price goes down. And at the time in 2017, there's actually charts that proved my thought process as well, showing that the news had a basically direct influence towards the price of Bitcoin. Also, being a registered representative of a company, it wasn't the easiest thing in the world for me to just go out there and open up an account somewhere to purchase cryptocurrencies, and Vanguard didn't have any ability for me to be able to purchase some, so I just kind of let it go to the wayside and, again, didn't really think about it. Now, as 2017 was coming to an end, we all know that Bitcoin had that infamous rally, I think, where it broke over $10,000 a coin, and then just kept going up and up. At this point, a lot of people that I worked with, remember, we're, a whole floor of finance nerds, we're starting to get into cryptocurrencies, but unfortunately it was too late. If you recall in 2017, once Bitcoin hit that all-time high, it very quickly made its way back down to a much cheaper price. And I saw a lot of my colleagues lose a ton of money because they got into this investment too late. And ultimately, it took a very long time for it to recover. So a lot of people pulled their money out, went back to investing in their mutual funds, ETFs, and individual stocks. And admittedly, at the time, I was thinking, I'm right. I called it all along. Obviously, Bitcoin is nothing more than a fugazi, and it's really just kind of a worthless investment. Now, I should take a sidestep here and say that, at Vanguard every year, they have this like whole event where like the CEO comes to every location and they talk with everybody. We're allowed to ask them questions. And obviously 2018, so the year following that incredible Bitcoin rally, a lot of people were asking if cryptocurrencies is something Vanguard's going to ever incorporate, if they will ever have a like a cryptocurrency ETF or anything along those lines. And at that time, short answer was no. It was not in their plans or projects to start incorporating cryptocurrencies into the funds. But they did say that blockchain technology is going to be a huge asset towards their business because it allows for things to happen instantaneously. Is that the right way of saying that? Basically, when you trade a stock, it takes like 3 days to settle. They said, eventually with the power of blockchain technology, stocks can settle instantly. So you don't have to worry for that few days for it to settle, or if you want to transfer stocks elsewhere, through blockchain, it can happen, again, instantly rather than it taking 7 days like a traditional transfer would. So admittedly, kind of from the beginning, and again, with all my influence coming from Vanguard, I thought blockchain was something that was very interesting, and I was excited to see the way that that would grow, but I still at this point had zero interest in cryptocurrencies. Now, as time went on, we started to hear about a few more coins coming out, like Ethereum was one, and I forget the other one that was kind of big at the time. But then there was also just a ton of other coins that to me just seemed like they were a joke. I think one coin's name was actually like Poop Coin. And it's just like, how can I actually feel like I'm investing in something that is meaningful when its name is Poop Coin? Like, to me, that sounds like just a horrible investment. And I saw a lot of these coins come out that, again, to me just had no value, they had no function, and there really was no rhyme or reason tied to the way that they would go up and down. So for the longest time, I simply just viewed cryptocurrencies as essentially, investing like you're gambling. So I thought it was truly nothing more than hitting the slot machines, the roulette table, or you can invest in cryptocurrency, that way you don't have to leave your house and you can do it all online. So it was something obviously that I was very skeptical about, and I know a lot of other people were as well. But then, actually, let's go ahead and just fast forward to a few months ago. I believe it was El Salvador was like the first country to adapt Bitcoin as part of their currency, or they use it now for some kind of medium of exchange. And while I don't necessarily think all the world's economies are based on what El Salvador is doing, it to me started to give some legitimacy behind what this is. And obviously, if there are countries out there that are saying, we'll take this on as our currency, then maybe there is some kind of value tied to it. Also around this time, again, I think this is in October, this is when the government was supposed to make some huge deal on, if we're going to pump more money into the system or not. And as inflation was becoming more and more of a legitimate concern, and it still kind of is, I actually started to think that maybe we could utilize something like a Bitcoin or an Ethereum as a hedge against inflation. So I did my own research, and I can't really find anything that directly says that it is or is not a hedge against inflation. I just don't think there's enough data out there to provide if it is or is not a hedge. But I decided maybe I can dabble with it and just throw a small sum of money into it, and it actually did very well for me. In fact, a lot of the times I would look at my stock portfolios and they were just plummeting. My own personal investments were not doing well, but then I take a look at the small amount I had invested in Ethereum, and it was just, every single day was just going up and up and up. So obviously, as I'm making money, my interest started to grow more and more into this. Now, I am a huge fan of Shark Tank. I like to watch Shark Tank whenever I can, or I at least watch the YouTube clips of some of them. And I'm also a huge fan of Kevin O'Leary. I think he's a brilliant investor, a brilliant business person. And when I see somebody like him out there promoting this whole cryptocurrency, decentralized financing, NFTs, I have to think that he probably knows something at this point that I am not aware of, and I was interested to learn more. And I heard his explanation on NFTs and why he's a huge fan of them. And it started off, of course, with his watch collection. Now, admittedly, immediately, I already started to disregard this because I was like, why would I want an NFT, basically just a JPEG picture of a watch? But the way he explained it to me actually made a lot of sense, and again, is starting to put some value towards these, digital assets. The way he explains why NFTs towards his watch collection would be beneficial is because it can really help reduce either theft of these expensive watches, or what are the knockoff versions of these watches. So, let's say, I know, bad example, I'm not really into watches like that, but let's say you want a really fancy Rolex, and so you go to the store, you buy the Rolex. With that, you get an NFT with it, or if you buy it on the secondary market, then somebody sends you the NFT with it to help prove the legitimacy of this item, showing that this is not a counterfeit item, this is real, it wasn't stolen, and here's your proof of it. And with that NFT, it really makes it almost impossible for people to either create counterfeits or steal these items and sell them at the steep profits that they previously were able to, because in theory, you can't really steal the NFT. So if you don't hold it, then that product is meaningless. Now, that is a little bit of an extreme example, but that actually was what I needed to hear to see that, these JPEGs that people are just flipping out there making millions of dollars can actually provide some value to the items that we have, or can almost be like a for lack of a better phrase, an insurance policy, if that even makes sense. So now at this point, it's all actually starting to make a little bit of sense to me, how these can actually provide a value towards the consumer. And as somebody who really enjoys Kevin O'Leary and thinks he's a smart investor, I couldn't help but think that if he's going all in on this kind of investment, then there has to be some kind of legitimacy tied to it, because as we all know, Mr. Wonderful isn't just going to throw money at something that's a really bad idea or a stupid investment. And we know that from watching, Shark Tank or Dragon's Den or Lair, whatever the Canadian version is, where he got started with it. So that obviously had my interest, but still not really enough for me to go all in on this. And I could say to this point, I'm still not like 100% all in on it, but that's because of my own lack of education. But even with his example with the watches, and it's all starting to kind of come clear to me now, there is still just one big problem I had with cryptocurrency, and that was, how do you value this? Like, what drives these prices going up and down all the time with, again, to me, what seemed like no rhyme or reason? And actually, the other day, I saw an interview with another one of my favorite investors, Howard Marks. He's a co-founder of, I believe it's Oak Tree Capital, traditionally a debt investor, but he had the same concerns about, we just can't value this as like we would a stock or a traditional company. But the reason is because this is not a stock, or we're not taking ownership in a company. What this really comes down to is just simple supply and demand. And that was where I had a big light bulb moment of, this actually starts to make sense. Because obviously, as we all know with supply, if supply goes down and demand goes up, then the price is going to increase and vice versa. So as these coins, especially the ones that actually only have like so much value to them, or there's only so many available, you just can't keep pulling them out of thin air, then that to me is actually some kind of reason why these might trade up and down or have different prices. And the best comparison I have for that is simply with commodities. So, obviously if, it's a bad year in Florida and they can't grow as much orange, or as many oranges, then frozen orange juice is going to take a huge hit and not perform that well. And I think it's ultimately the same thing with these cryptocurrencies. As we hear about like energy efficiency or anything along those lines and how they can, actually be used efficiently. Again, I'm still a total noob here, so I don't really fully know what I'm talking about. But it to me starts to see of how this can actually start to drive a supply and demand scenario to help these prices either increase or decrease. And now I have a basis to work off with how I can actually start to study and understand these investments, not just seeing the whole, meme Dogecoin and, Shiba Inu coin out there, just kind of people making money on something that, to me, those don't really make a whole lot of sense. So ultimately, I'll just kind of wrap this up quickly by saying, cryptocurrencies are starting to make more sense to me. Is it still my favorite investment? Not at all. To this day, real estate is still my favorite investment. It's what I'm working towards being able to start having in my portfolio, because I believe that is the most beneficial investment you can have. And yes, I am saying this as, Zillow is saying that the whole market is going to crash. But I think it's a good thing to have in your portfolio. Now, of course, it does come with needing to do your own research. And unfortunately, with, areas like this, it's probably more research than you might need to do if you're just trying to learn about Starbucks, because this is a brand new industry that I think a lot of us are still trying to learn and understand, and maybe only a few people out there are truly genuine experts in this topic. But I also believe that there's still a lot of questions or hurdles or something along those lines that we need to overcome with this cryptocurrency. I think that, the government is obviously going to want to have their hand in it somehow. They're going to want to make sure that it's all taxed and that you get the, pay capital gains taxes. And I know that like defeats the whole, decentralized finance and everything. So I think we're going to see some regulatory problems with this in the future. And also, again, there are just a ton of coins out there to me that just don't have any value to them. They're simply like, a meme stock basically, but with cryptocurrencies. And I think those are what we're going to have to watch out for. But there are some investments out there with cryptocurrencies as well as NFTs now that do provide some kind of value to the consumer. And that actually is what I'm excited about and what I'm excited to learn. So yes, it is a change. No, I can't say I'm going all in on it. I still only have a very small portion invested in it. But I just wanted to share with all of you my thoughts, because I know as somebody who's been very critical in the past about this as an investment, I'm starting to see the light a little bit more. And as I say that, the light on my camera is dying. So I'll just wrap up here by saying, of course, if this is something you're interested in, I always will suggest doing your own research. I do believe that crypto is going to be much more volatile of an investment than you'll see with stocks or real estate, but I don't necessarily think there's a problem anymore with having a portion of your portfolio invested in it, because that is part of building a broadly diversified portfolio. And when I say broadly diversified, I do like to look at that across different asset classes. So having a mix of stocks, real estate, and crypto inside of your portfolio can actually be a really good thing to have, especially as, inflation becomes a concern, or, any other thing that might happen. It's always good to have money in different asset classes to really just help make sure you're spreading your risk across the table, not just hyper-focus in one area. So anyway, that's my thoughts here. Leave a comment below if you have any, resources maybe where I can go learn more about this, and, credible, legitimate resources. It does seem like there's still a lot of fluff out there that we need to work our way through. Also, let me know what your thoughts are on this as an investment, or if it's something that you have. As always, if you like this video, I hope that you consider hitting the thumbs up button. If you haven't subscribed already, I just ask that you consider doing so. It's free. It just takes the cost of a click of a button, or, maybe a second of your time. So I don't know. I just don't even really know what I'm saying anymore here. So I'm going to wrap up here. Thank you. Have a good day. And, you could be anywhere in the world, but you're right here with me, and I really appreciate that. But I'll let you go ahead and enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you next time.